Now there's the novelty, a match that starts on a Sunday evening, finishes on a Sunday evening. How about that? MPL presents Cricbuzz Live. In fact, it finished at 10:49 when the last ball was bowled. A lot of vendors were coming in around midnight in Jaipur will lose some business. Our hotel crews are programmed only to start working after midnight, so a lot of chaos there, all thanks to the Kolkata Knight Riders batsman who decided to give Dre Russ a day off. But that's the kind of match it was. 139 for 3. The pitch looked as if it was, well, not playing up to standard. But at the end of the day, you'll have to say that the Kolkata Knight Riders bowled cleverly and batted equally cleverly to take the game home, and a clinical finish by 8 wickets. What it also meant was our hunt for the MPL Super Couch ends up in a blank. All of Sunday, we did not have anyone seated on it, even though myself and Joy both were leaning towards purple. We didn't know it would they would finish it so quickly.
Absolutely. And wonderful finish. The way they went about it, the first guys hit, they went after the spinners. Sunil Narine did his usual demolition job of spinners. By now, I wonder why they ever bowled spinners to him. And then after that, Robin finished off very well, and lots of encouraging signs. Lynn looking good, Robin Uttappa looking good, the bowling fantastic. Gurney, one little more part in the puzzle that they've now got together. So it's looking fantastic for them.
Michael, we'll come a bit to Narine against spin in a bit, but overall, if you look at it, they looked like they were batting on different surfaces.
Yeah, when you get beaten before the second strategic timeout, you know you've had a pretty poor game. 139 we felt was going to be competitive. Inside 4 overs, that was done and dusted. Tactically, they got it wrong. Bowling to Narine, the off-spinner, coming around the wicket to start, gets hit for 6 and goes over the wicket, balls into leg stump with 2 fielders just behind square on the onside, basically saying, hit me for 4 whenever you wish. So tactically, Zinger didn't quite get that right. Maybe the pitch just juiced up a little bit and the ball came on just a little bit better. I think it was more the mindset, chasing that small target. I think the message was sent out by the KKR management, just go and dislodge those first 6 overs, go and do whatever you can to get as many as you possibly can. We'll probably gamble on losing 2 or 3 wickets in those first 6 to go and get 60, 70 runs. We'll know we'll win the game from there. So good tactics from KKR, very clever in the field. Rajasthan are a long way short for the team that they've got. You know, there's a lot of talent in that dressing room. I just don't think they're getting the maximum out of the ability that they've got in that room.
What you also need, if you're defending a total around 140, is a little slice of luck. Now, on Cricbuzz Combox, we briefly discussed it, Joy Bhattacharjya and myself, but I'd like to bring Michael Vaughan in there. First, a catch gets dropped, Rahul Tripathi, and then you see a ball at about 130 k's an hour from Dhawal Kulkarni, takes the inside edge of Chris Lynn's bat, almost flush onto the leg stump, and the bail doesn't fall.
Well, I think we've seen over the course of the last week that, you know, the Zinger bails are great. You know, they came into T20 cricket a few years ago and it's fantastic. It's a great spectacle. I love technology and I love what it brings to the game. But when you see, you know, MS Dhoni got bowled 2 or 3 games ago and the bails didn't zing, they didn't flash. So the ball hit the stumps and it didn't create enough impact on the stumps for the bails to flash. No problem with that. That's been happening for quite a few years. Not a problem. MS Dhoni flicked the ball onto the stumps brilliantly, skillfully, and it hit the stumps with power. The Zinger bails flashed. The ball tonight at 136 kilometres an hour hit that leg stump almost flush. The Zinger bails flash, but the bails don't come off. We now have a problem that the laws potentially may have to change. That if the Zinger bails flash, love the Zinger bails, but if they flash, it's going to have to be deemed out.
I think
you can't be having a ball 135 mile, hit leg stump, the bails flash, but the bail don't come off, and it's not out. I think it's such a game geared towards the batsman striking it to the boundary, loads of entertainment, that we've got to allow the bowler something. We've got to allow the bowler, if he gets enough skill to beat the batsman's inside edge and it hits the leg stump or the off stump or the top of the bails and the bail don't come off, but it thinks surely it's got to be out. It has to be out. We can't be that cruel on bowlers that to suggest that, by the way, you can bowl Chris Lynn these days and he's not out. We just don't want the batsman to get out anymore. There must be a weight, there must be something that's making the Zinger bails, probably all the technology inside is making it a bit heavier. So clearly, the heavier the bail, the less likely it's going to come out of the grooves. So you've got to put that into the equation. I'd just make it simple. If the bails flash, that's what it's about. There's enough impact from the ball onto the stumps. That's got to be where the line is. It's got to be out. If it's particularly tonight, if you bowl someone, I'm sorry, you've got to have the batsman walking back to the pavilion.
Well, before T20, of course, it happened in the 2015 World Cup, and maybe the alarm bells should have started ringing then, or the lights should have been flashing.
Absolutely. I think this is a matter that's just come up because it's happened thrice now in the past week. And I think it's important, and he's absolutely right, because you've had so much of it. If the weight of the bails has changed, that's also a change in rules, then this side of the rules can also be changed. And it's very simple, because Zinger bails have now given you that ability to notice when the bails have destroyed. So far, you never had that ability. Now we know exactly at what point it happens. Why not use it and use the technology to its best use?
And you already know that a certain wood called lignum vitae is used in making the normal bails.
Bales, yeah.
That's already a slightly heavier wood, only slightly heavier, so it can go against the wind. It doesn't fall off in the wind.
Yeah.
There have been times in Wellington where they've had to play without the
Yeah.
bails, but already heavier, making it even heavier.
Yeah, I think tonight was the MS Dhoni flicker, the kind of ball from behind. We've probably seen that before in the past, where the bails haven't come off, and particularly the Dhoni being ball, where you play a ball lane, it runs off the face of the bat, and it dribbles back onto the stump. We've seen that, but I'm sorry, tonight, when you bowl 135 clicks and it hits the stumps and it's not out, there's an issue. There is a real issue, and I'm not one really to feel sorry for bowlers. I really am. I'm a batsman that's always looking at a bowler and don't have any ounce of sympathy for them. They were stupid to go and bowl. Why did they become a batsman? Why running all that way and produce all that effort where you can just stand there with a piece of willow and smack it? I mean, I don't quite get the philosophy about wanting to be a bowler, but come on. If you bowl someone, it's got to be out. And if the bails aren't going to come off, we've just got to go with a flashing zinger. I think it's a very simple solution.
And that has got to be said just as you see it, because Michael Vaughan, a batsman, has said it, and he's taken the bowler's side. I know there's some bowlers who always want the rule changes in their favour, but that is about as fair as it gets. But when it comes to a bowler who can bat a bit, that's the role that Sunil Narine played today for the Kolkata Knight Riders, our MPL hero of the match, and there was pretty much no doubt about that. 47 of 25 deliveries, that's what broke the back of the Rajasthan bowlers. And yes, there was a bit of contribution from Ajinkya Rahane, because at the very start we were expecting that maybe to Sunil Narine you'd think of Jofra Archer and then try and bring in the leg spinners to the rest of them. But what they did was they brought Krishnappa Gautam right at the very start, and he was taken to the cleaners. And it's not the first time it's happened with Sunil Narine. Let's just remind you what he's done to Sunil Badri on a couple of occasions. Krishnappa Gautam was, of course, in Kolkata in 2018, and the same bowler once again suffered here in Jaipur, and we know Varun Chakravarti at the start of the season. That is some serious treatment from one man.
Absolutely, and exactly, if you know that, and this has happened before, he's the guy who's consistent 15-20 run overs. You have to. We were talking about Jofra Archer, the ball not being in length, being up here, so he doesn't get his free arc to hit it. Something, I mean, you've got to be, these tricks, especially when you're defending a total that's so low, you can't be missing these tricks. You have so little to play with, don't take that away from yourself as well.
Yeah, the problem when you're bowling to someone like Sunil Narine, if you're a spinner, you can't hide the ball, particularly when there's only two fielders outside the circle in the first six, so it's always going to be within his kind of swinging arc. Even if you go a little bit wider off something, he'll still be able to get it. If you come straight, we can see how well he plays the sweep shot. When you bowl a seamer, you can go into the armpit, you can go high, but also you can throw it wider, because he goes outside his leg stump to try and free up the arms. And if you bowl wide, that top edge was wide of the off stump, make him fetch the delivery. The spinners find it very difficult, particularly in the first six, to make him fetch. They can't gamble too much because there's only two outside the circle. You're only protecting two areas. After the 6 overs, when the spinners come on, you've got more areas to protect, so you can actually play around the crease and move the ball around. But I was very, very surprised that they didn't go Gopal and Jofra Archer. I thought they'd be the best two combinations, the best two bowlers to go at Narine. You know that if he gets 2 or 3 overs, if he has 1 over like we saw off Gautam, game done and dusted. Because the whole momentum, sorry, I'm not allowed to use that word, the whole shift in the game can just manoeuvre it with inside 1 over. And that 1 over, you could just see from Rajasthan, they were just flat. As soon as that first 6 went, they went, oh no, here we go. And then a 4-4-4-4, game over.
Yeah, we need a dictionary to get these words up and running as to what we're not allowed to use, but partnership we can use, because it was a cracking one between Sunil Narine and Chris Lynn, jersey number 50. Ended up getting exactly 50, that was Chris Lynn. But remember, we were talking about captaincy and Ajinkya Rahane, different teams needing a sort of deputy, a senior deputy. Ajinkya Rahane did have that deputy in Steve Smith, except he was on the microphone and he was very candid in saying, not a good idea, but you'll have to speak to the skipper about that.
That'll be really interesting, because when he goes back there, it's not that a lot of people would have heard it on air and they would have said, what exactly is going on. You could agree or disagree with the vice captain, with the captain on the field, but saying it on a mic may not be the best idea. So I don't know quite what's happening in the dressing room, but If I was the Rajasthan Royals management, I'd sit both of them down and say, talk it out, sort it out now. This needs to be sorted because, our season's already going off the rails. This needs to be sorted right now.
It's very difficult when you are bringing so many different styles of personalities, different countries together, different cultures, to try and really galvanise and generate that spirit together is very, very hard to do. And one loss, two losses, then a third loss, and a fourth loss. All of a sudden you can see that there might be, the English guys pointing the finger at some of the Indian players, and the Indians suddenly pointing the finger at the English or the Aussies or the Kiwis. It's very, very difficult to get that togetherness, and I think that's the real skill of the coach and the backroom team, is to try and generate that spirit. That's why I always respect the Sunrisers of Hyderabad, and Chennai have just got a wonderful kind of operation going because of Dhoni, because of Fleming, and it just looks like one big family. Sunrisers are the second, I think KKR probably the third. They're the three teams that I look at that look like they've got a solid backroom that's kind of working with all the different cultures that you have to work with in the IPL. Rajasthan just look very similar, not quite as bad as RCB. Delhi, I just look at those kind of three teams, they just look a little bit disjointed. They don't quite look like they oiled. They look like they need some better oil in the team just to kind of make them move along that little bit smoother.
Paddy Upton, you think, he deals with the mind as much as he deals with the tactics.
Look, Paddy Upton is there not because he's a brilliant cricket player or a reader of the game. He's there also because he's supposed to be somebody who understands the games of the mind. Say, a psychologist, sports psychology, that's his strength. So, the other parts, there are other players who can look after it, or there are other coaches who can look after it. His job is that overall psychological well-being of the team. And he needs to sort this now, because it does bother me that an open statement is made. However much in jest or this thing, if a guy says, hey, I don't know what's happening, what the captain's doing.
And however true it was,
it's not a good look. And so, whatever it is, they need to sort it out. And there's very little left of the season, because remember, they're very much in danger of becoming the next RCB. RCB 0-6, they're 1-4? No, 1-5. 1-4.
That's a reminder.
1-4.
So just that one win, 2 points for Rajasthan, and what's going to add to their woes is the fact that some of their key players are going to be going, which could include Jofra Archer as well, and we really don't know where they're going to find replacement for that. Confirming Kolkata Knight Riders with that very healthy net run rate, plus 1.058, are right at the top of the tree. So really, you have to think of the replacements. Michael, off air, we were chatting briefly about that. Where's it going to come from, other than Liam Livingstone, who's the one on the bench?
Yeah, they don't look like they've got a great deal. I think it's the Indian players that are going to have to stick their hand up. You mentioned Ajinkya Rahane and potential an issue with what Steve Smith said on the mic. I didn't see that much of an issue, to be honest. But Ajinkya's got to find form with the bat. He's opening the bat, and you've got to set the tone. You've got to lead the team. You've got to go out there and use those first 6 overs. As I keep saying, T20 cricket is a short game but a long game in many ways, and you've got to break it down into small fractions. And those first 6 overs are key. And the first 6 overs for Rajasthan today, whether the pitch was a little bit stickier and a bit drier, only they can answer that, but they didn't go out with the right approach in those first 6 overs, and it all sets from that first over. The initial first over was a little bit timid. It was a little bit, Chowla's bowling, we'll just have a look. No, you don't have a look, you've got to go. The first 6 overs, you've been given the licence. Doesn't matter if you're the captain or not, you have to go. That should be the team rules, it should be the team direction, that whatever the conditions, whatever the situation, 6 overs of the power play, it's time to go out there and strike it, and then put the right people in for those 6 overs. And if you go 2 down, then you get a Steve Smith in. If you go 2 down, Steve Smith comes in, he's like your glue, just manoeuvres the ball around and regroups for you. But the first 3 players in the power play, they have to be strikers of a cricket ball.
And I think one stat sums up the game. Rajasthan, when they batted, they scored the second lowest power play score of this year's tournament, and when they fielded, they conceded the second highest amount in that 6 overs. That's a big gap.
Huge gap, and it's more than what he said. What he's talking about is, most importantly, is intent. There's this great story, Dave Watmore used to say, that when they first started Jayasuriya and Kaluvutherne opening in '96, they won the World Cup with that opening combination. And the only one thing he told the selectors, and he told Jayasuriya, he said, you get out 5 times slashing, there's no problem. Get out 5 times, you get out for 0 slashing, no problems. The first time you slash half-cocked, you're going to be sitting on the bench next to me. Okay, so if you hit it, so the moment the guy is empowered, so similarly you go and tell these guys that, boss, your position is not in danger if you get out for 0 and see what the other thing is. Sunil Narine, when he does get out for KKR, he gets out for 0, he's consumed 3 balls, 4 balls. Here what's happened is somebody is 24 of 26 and not going after that.
Yeah, and the problem is then players, because the IPL is such a huge profile and it's also a great money earner, they all of a sudden, they see the team lose and then they go into and some of them, and I guess I understand it, they can look a little bit selfishly and go, well, I better just get myself a score. You know, I better just get a 40 or a 50, so my numbers are all right. You know, when you get that in a team, your team's gone. You know, so you've got to send players out with that message. Your role in those first 6, you've got 36 balls to cause chaos. End of. You know, we'll look at what you've got after the first 6. That's what I'm going to judge you on as an opening batsman. Yeah, you might have a few balls just to assess conditions, then you've got to go. You've got to cause madness. And then we say at 6, what you're on, 25, 30, 40, whatever you can get. And then you go from 6 to about 13. What you're going to be from 6 to 13. And then it's from 14 to 20. It's like 3 little games inside 20 overs that you play as a batting unit. And I'm just looking at Rajasthan today. I just didn't think they weren't brave enough. They didn't go out there and they weren't aggressive enough in those first 6.
Again, that same word comes to me, timid. You know, they were just timid.
Is that a word that's allowed?
That's a word
that's allowed.
Yeah. And just as I said, he's looking as if he's playing for his form. He's not playing for the team's form at that point in time. Rahane is looking for the ball, trying to find form for himself. But if you're using the first 6 to do that, you're really hurting.
KKR found the absolute perfect opening T20 cricket in Sunil Narine, because he is just he's not bothered. He just goes out there. His job is just to go. You know, if I see it, I'm just going to whack it, and that's all my role is. You know, I know I'll probably get out first ball a few times. I'm going to chip one in the air every now and again, but I'll also have an over. I'll have that one over that will go for 20 that will just kickstart our innings, and that's all you need from an opener in T20.
I think Jessore was a great example, and imagine what happened in that semi-final. That's the one time he slashed hard, he got out, but he knew that was his license. They still went and won the game.
And remember, where did Narine bat for KKR? 8, 9, 10. That's where he used to bat for KKR. So the moment you put him up, you're not wasting a single player, because you said, look, he'd normally be batting at 8 or 9. It makes no difference to me. He gets out. It's like saying, okay, fine, my normal openers come out.
Look, Rajasthan, at that stage, they might have to think out of the box. And it might be that they go, you know, Jaffer Archer, go in first.
Exactly the word I was thinking of.
Just go in first.
Why not?
You can think out the box. If you just keep delivering what the opposition expect, you can plan for it. If you suddenly unearth something that the opposition haven't talked about in a team meeting or haven't planned for, you might just shock them. You might just change their patterns of play. They might have had an idea that in the 6 we're going to bowl X, Y, and Z, and that gets to 6, and then 7, X and Y comes on. Where if you throw someone up there that's completely different to what they planned for, they might have to change their plan. So I think that's a lot of what T20 is about, is trying to dislodge the opposing team's plans as much as your own.
Yep, it was one of those, started slightly in the Big Bash, then he did it in the IPL, and it took the West Indies and their franchises that much longer to get Sunil Narine to be an opener. He did it for TKR after he did it for KKR. Well, let's get to our MPL super team hero. I'm pretty certain he'd have to have Sunil Narine in the team. Oh, and we've got to love that. My goodness, look at that hairstyle. That's the previous one took about 5 hours. That would have taken about 3 hours for Shubham Kumeria, 357.5. And yes, you pretty much picked a good team. I don't think I'm eligible to be there, but I had some pretty decent points on the board today in my MPL super team, because I had Narine, I had Steve Smith as captain, but maybe a few ex-players here and there that I didn't quite get in. Now let's get to what's happening tomorrow. It's been a long weekend, but Monday will start with a game between 2 teams who are both coming off losses. The Kings 11 Punjab from Mohali, they'll be hosting the Sunrisers Hyderabad. It'll be an interesting game because they also tried to turn Mohali into a bit of a fortress, but the question is them both bouncing back from losses. Michael, for the Punjab team, and for both really, it's one of those they'll want to get things back on track.
Yeah, and they'll want Chris Gale back in form. He missed out in the last game. You know, I'm pretty sure that Hyderabad will bowl spin to Chris Gale as Chennai did with Harbhajan Singh. Yeah, you don't want to be losing 2 games on the trot. They're 2 good teams. You know, they're 2 teams that are well led. They're well organised. I think Mike Hesson looks like he's got a good group going. Ravi Ashwin's done well with his captaincy. And the Sunrisers generally don't have 2 bad games, particularly with the bat in hand. I would expect both teams to play better, and it'll just be which teams, as we always say, can get their better individuals to have the better day. They'll end up winning the game.
They won't bowl Rashid Khan to Chris Gale, will they again? The last time that happened?
Yeah,
bash.
But Nabi would be a good option.
Yeah.
Takes the ball away from him. Would be a really good option up front to him. But yeah, it's an interesting one because the thing about the last defeat that SRH had, SRH has been defeated before. They've been comprehensively defeated. It's just the way that it happened. Normally, that's what they do to other teams. Suddenly, they fall for a low total and then defend it well. This is, exactly the opposite happened to them. And for Punjab, it will be even more dispiriting because until the 14th, 15th over, they were there. They didn't lose too many wickets. Those guys knocked them around. But, somewhere tactically, they either went too late or when they went, they just couldn't connect. And that's a strange one because rarely will you see guys going that far into the game and then not finishing a chase. I mean, if Chennai was in the same position, you would have bet almost anything. You would bet the house on the fact that they'd finish. If they reached 14, 15 with 2 wickets left, they would finish a game. But that's the interesting one.
But for the Sunrisers, I know there's been a bit of an injury and a bit of a niggle for Kane Williamson, and he probably slots in once some of the players leave. But do you think there's enough reason to want to push him in because the only person he can replace is Johnny Bairstow?
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen.
Exactly.
I would think that Kane will probably miss out again because he's got that shoulder problem. It was an issue back in New Zealand. They didn't expect him to play so soon in the IPL. He played and then he niggled it again. So I would think they'll be very consistent. I don't think they'll make much changes. Tom Moody and his team will be very solid with his group and say, you know what, the batting unit, you buggered up the other day. Get out there and do a bit better in Mohali because they've got such a good team, such a good operation, and it's probably a little bit of a lesson to them. It was a little bit of a warning sign that they can't rely on that opening partnership all the time. And when the opening partnership doesn't quite work out, the middle order that failed miserably, they've got to be on the game to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I'm pretty sure Tom and his management will go out with exactly the same 11.
They've got 2 keepers in the team in Wriddhiman Saha and Srivaths Goswami who can play as pure batsmen because you've got Johnny Bairstow solid up there. Would you even think of getting someone there, maybe a Yusuf Pathan, maybe someone just throw in an X factor in the middle order?
Yeah, look, I would change, and I'm not sure which one of them. The 3 batsmen, the 3 middle order batsmen that you have, that's literally, I think Vijay Shankar's done enough to stay there for a while. It's Manish Pandey, Yusuf Pathan and Deepak Hooda. Among these 3, I know Manish Pandey's advantage is he's a gun fielder. He really gives them 15, 20, not 15, 25, 10 extra runs in the field. But those 2 guys, Deepak Hooda and Yusuf Pathan, one of them they'll probably look to having to replace at some point in time because they cannot afford to keep having the kind of finishes that they're doing for them. And they need a genuine finisher, and I don't see even the keepers come in, it's not that they're really finishers. They don't bat at, they're better off at 1, 2, 3, not at 5, 6, 7. So even if they come in, slot in, I don't see them solving this late finishing problem that they have right now because of their lack of international stars at that place.
Abhishek Sharma was one. He did it a couple of times lower down the order. As you said, yes, both Wriddhiman and Srivaths, they're both top of the order players and you don't want to touch the top of the order. So,
right. Abhishek, I'd really look at Abhishek for either a Deepak or a Yusuf because I think their sell-by dates are pretty close now. And Yusuf has been, as I said last time also, he's been making the same mistake over and over again. And either somebody needs to sit him down. Look, he still can smash the ball out of the ground, but he's not going to really field for you. So he needs to give you a bit more for him to have value for you, and they need to look at that very seriously. Good teams make strong decisions and say, okay, this is it, now let's move on and do it. Let's see what they do.
They've done it in the past, and that's why they've gone on to become champions, have the Sunrisers Hyderabad. The Kings 11 Punjab, on the other hand, well, they're sort of at that mid-table type of position, and they'll know that these are the kind of games they need to make count, particularly at home. But in terms of their combination, let's just have a look at their lineup, the way it stands at the moment. They left Mujibur Rahman out, which was a brave call, and brought Andrew Tye in the previous game. But now that they've gone back to Mohali, I'm wondering if this is the combination that they're going to stick to.
Well, Mujib will come back in. You could see in Chennai that Ravi Ashwin was desperate for another spinner. Even if the pitch is a good one, I still feel real quality spin is the way to go in T20 cricket. Mujib is a quality spinner. Andrew Tye is the one for me. I mentioned before the game in Chennai that I think he's got a lot of tricks, but those tricks have been seen now. And he has to bring something a little bit different. Got to try and change something just to surprise the batting units because I think they know that he's going to bowl these different deliveries and they've seen them all. It may be that Mujib comes in for him. They might just go for a lot of spinners. They might just try and take the pace off. They'll also be wary of the fact that the Sunrisers failed against Alzari Joseph, and they might want to add a bit more pace. So Vijay might come in because of that extra bit of pace. And these kind of decisions that they make, you know, for me, it's about the team just gathering and just trying to put the opposition under pressure, and that comes from having the culture right, getting over a little bit of disappointment in the last game, practicing hard tonight, I'm sure they have done, and just trying to make sure that likes of Gale and Rahul at the top of the order are in fine form and get them off to a flying start. If you get that, pretty much looks after itself.
5 on the trot, they've won in Mohali since the previous season, so again, that's that whole fortress that they're trying to protect. Shami, there's, which one is, I've just been told that it's another one we can't use, okay, momentum, fortress, all right. We've got to find another word for it, but yeah, it's their backyard, I think backyard.
Their stockade, it's their, battlement, it's
their... But, you know, one factor we haven't discussed too much about is at some point, some of the Indian World Cup probables are going to maybe need a bit of a rest here and there. Shami's played 5 on the trot. Could you maybe at some point Ankit Rajput for him, like for like replacement?
Ankit Rajput's a pretty useful bowler. In fact, in the T20, if you see, Ankit Rajput's probably played more games in the last 2-3 years than Shami has in the T20 format. He's a really useful bowler in this format. The other two guys I'd be looking at very seriously is Mandeep Singh is not doing it for me, and the two people who are logical, one is Karun Nair, a test triple century. The man has class. When he hits the ball, he really hits it beautifully. There's another guy that they spent quite a bit of money behind. That's a chap called Prabhsimran Singh, who's also a really hard hitter and who sort of, you know, hits the boundary, reaches the boundary, and also can hit in the power plays. Not just in the power plays, after the 6 overs. You see, Mandeep starts finding it difficult to find the big boundaries after the first 6 overs. So if he's not batting in the first 6, he's really hurting you. He's a bit like Parthiv Patel like that. And Prabhsimran and Karun Nair have that power. So I'd be really tempted to look at one of them for...
As someone who's sat at an auction table, I'm just trying to think of the total money strength of the bench there. You've got Nicholas Puran, Varun Chakravarti, Prabhsimran. Add all that up, it's 20 crores plus.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, and that's one of the golden rules we used to have, saying that on a regular basis, at least 75% of your purse must be out there on the ground. Otherwise, you haven't picked well. You haven't spent your money well. So if 60 crores is not there on the ground, then you're costing your team. And I think about 45 is there right now for Kings 11. Remember, one of their cheapest players is a certain Mr. Gale.
Chris, yeah, I was just going to say, 1 crore, Chris Gale, he's back to basics, but I think he probably enjoys that in a sense. I mean, you're looking at saying that there's no price tag on my head. He's got another price tag back in Jamaica, and he just goes out there and expresses himself. I don't think at this point he cares.
No, he just enjoys playing the game. I think he knows it is coming to an end. Whether it's this year, whether it's next year, we'll have to wait and see. But, you know, he's still hitting the ball nice, and he's got that look in his eye. He's got the World Cup coming up. You know, he played nicely against England in the 50-over format in the West Indies, smacking it to all parts. So there's still a little bit of life in that old dog yet. The universe boss is going to be around for another year or so, I would suggest.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's a great ambassador of the game. Also, I can imagine him going up and tapping Varun Chakravarti and saying, "You ain't 8.3 times better than me, man."
Oh yes, but we've got to solve the one matter of the joy factor question, which I said was a lot simpler today, but it was an interesting one. It was one of those that can be worked into a good quiz question. So, Joy?
Here goes. Okay, the question was, in the records of limited over matches, Mahela Jayawardene and MS Dhoni are the only centurions ever for which specific team? And the answer is that they played together in a 3-match series for Asia 11 versus Africa 11, 3 matches in 2007, and they had a great partnership. Gautam, you were there for that match, right?
Yes, the partnership, it remained a record. And another question that, of course, could be asked is, MS Dhoni had the record partnership for the 6th wicket. Who was his partner? And, of course, he tried every possible person who could have played in the Indian middle order, and then came Mahela Jayawardene out of nowhere. And there was another bit of trivia in that game. I think it was Morne Morkel who made his debut. So he's one of those few players in the world not to make an ODI debut for his nation.
Interesting. And yeah, Sean Pollock, I think, won a man of the match, and Dhoni won one of them.
He scored 90 plus, Sean Pollock.
Dilhara Fernando won a man of the match for some reason.
Dilhara.
Fernando got 4 wickets.
Global.
Yeah, Sean Pollock, you could not hear the last of it because everyone who used to write him off as an all-rounder, after that game, he went around telling everybody, random people on the streets of Chennai, look, I can bat. Well, let's see who our winner is for this particular question, who is someone who has won this before. And here we go. Devansh Agarwal, that's a familiar one, at the rate of 111_ Devansh, so it's been correctly answered. This was, I think, more about speed than about knowing the answer, because we got lots and lots of right answers in. And of course, this one doesn't have any photograph with the cool hairstyles and the shades on there. That's only for our MPL Super Team heroes. Well, Joy is going to start preparing some tougher ones on the coming
Yeah,
week.
look, weekend, Sunday, they need an easy ball. They hit it, okay, they just hit it past my head, but
Yeah.
tomorrow should be another
I mean,
day.
you're going to have to go back and you have time to do nothing.
I have lots of time. I wouldn't know what to do
Yeah,
at this point in
exactly.
time.
Well, once again, thank you,
Thank you very
Michael
much.
Vaughan. Thank you, Joy. Pleasure having all of you on MPL Presents Cricbuzz Live. We'll be back tomorrow evening. It's not a double header. It's in the evening, 7:30 in the evening, a single header. This one is from Mohali. It's the Kings 11 Punjab taking on the Sunrisers Hyderabad. Until we see you then, see you from Cricbuzz Live.